Okay, so welcome to User Experience Research for Beginners, Core Principles and Common Methods. So basically, today we are going to talk about what user experience is, what user research or user experience research is, why is it important, what are the benefits of user experience research, why do we do it, what kind of methods do we use as user experience researchers, and some resources that I would like to recommend, for you to explore, to learn more about user experience research. And then at the end of the session, we will have a quick, quick Q&A session and also a kind of open conversation. So who is this user in this user experience, journey? So Edward Tufte famously said, only two industries, refer to their customers as users: computer design and drug dealing. So let me make something clear here. We are talking about the first of the two industries here, not the second one, right? So user experience is basically about, giving the user exactly what they need, okay, without any frustration, without any pain points. And pain points is a kind of, common word that you often hear when you read something about user experience or watch a video about user experience. So Don Norman and Jacob Nielsen, as you see here on the slide, are two leaders of user experience world, and they are the founders of Nielsen Norman Group, NNG, in the United States, and they are kind of the world leaders. And they say user experience encompasses all aspects of the end user's interaction with the company, its services, its products, the entire interaction. It's not only about, giving customers, what they need. It's more than that, because a great user experience is a matter of a seamless combination of various different services of various disciplines, ranging from engineering, graphical design, industrial design, interface design, and even marketing and even customer relations. So it's the whole, interaction with the company, its services, and its products. So they also make a distinction between, the total user experience from the user interface, UI. It's another common concept that you commonly hear, very frequently hear when you read, or watch something about UX. So although the user interface is obviously, an extremely important part of the design, they say that it's beyond that, okay? The total user experience is something, different from the user interface only. So it's not only about your experience with the user interface. For example, consider a movie platform like Netflix or Disney or, like Action in Turkey. So even if, for example, the user interface of that movie platform is easy to use, user-friendly, your user experience with that platform will be very poor if you want to watch, let's say, international movies, but the underlying database of the platform only contains most popular American movies. So user experience is concerned with everything that affects users and their interactions. So it's not restricted to the user interface usability only. So basically, usability is a quality attribute of the user interface. And again, total user experience is a much broader concept. And as I said previously, for a high quality user experience, coordination must be, achieved among multiple disciplines, including product management, marketing, content, customer service, graphic design, interaction design. So everyone is responsible for, looking out for the user. So what is my understanding of UX as an entry-level user experience researcher? So I see UX as taking all those bad experiences away, people are happy and they come back to your service. You know, it's very related to UX research, is very related to human psychology and cognition. And it's about, you know, matching the product or service to the way users think. And it's about the perceived ease. It's about the perceived difficulty of interacting with a system to reach an end goal. So it's about the perception as well. Not only the reality, but also it's also about the perception as well. So UX is also, you know, is a kind of, it also represents the human side of technology. You know, the question is, how can I make technology easy and enjoyable to use for people? And how can I, in a way, combine human side with technology side, okay? Combining a person with technology. So in terms of defining user experience research, I would like to make an analogy similar to the one made by Rachel Lee, a content marketing manager at User Interviews, one of the important user experience research platforms. So when you want to make a special dish, for example, for someone you love, like your wife, like your husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever that person is, the special dish that you are going to prepare or that you want to prepare is the product itself, and your loved one is the end user, right? But before you go to Walmart, for example, to get the ingredients and start cooking, it will be very smart to know, right, what your loved one likes. Like, do they like onion? Do they like parsley? Can they eat it hot? Are they vegetarian? Are they vegan? You know, all that information is necessary for you to prepare this dish. So knowing your loved ones' likes and dislikes, their allergies, food allergies, maybe previous bad experiences with certain foods, help you prepare the dish that they would love to consume as the end user of the dish. So UX research is actually this process of learning about the end user, learning about their motivations, habits, goals, frustrations, and similar characteristics, with the ultimate goal of designing and developing the product or service experience that will make the user's life easier and also, you know, make them more satisfied with their user experience. So there are some formal definitions of user experience research that I would like to share with you. So one definition says, user research is the systematic study of the goals, needs, and capabilities of users so as to specify design, construction, or improvement of tools to benefit how users work and live. Another definition is, a UX researcher is the person who conducts research to better understand the user and their needs before the product or service is created. They also conduct research to understand how a current product or service can be improved from the user perspective. So that's another definition. And another definition, which is much more recent and one of my favorite people that I follow on LinkedIn is coming from Rachel Lee at User Interviews. She says, user experience research is the practice of studying users' unique, interesting motivations and desires and discovering actionable insights to improve business strategy, products, and also user experiences. So these are some formal definitions that I wanted to share with you. So why does UX research matter? You know, why is it important? You know, it doesn't matter how many products, right, we release. If they are junk, they are just, you know, we are simply shipping a lot more of this junk. So we should always, you know, consider the specific questions that we have about our concept at every phase of the development. And we need to create the simplest artifact to be able to test it, you know, as soon as possible, to test our assumptions. So why is UX research important? Because it helps us to avoid assumptions about what the users really want or need, right? So do your research and see if they really need or want the product. It also helps us gain user insights so that we can understand, you know, how useful, how usable, how relevant, valuable, or not, you know, your product or service actually is. Through UX research, you can build empathy for your users. so that you can make better design decisions to improve their user experience journey. It also helps your design and development team move forward in a productive manner with data instead of personal opinions. Instead of saying, I think this is good, you have the evidence to show that it's good, usable or not. And in this way, you can make your design decisions, empirically supported, and it's difficult, to challenge a decision that is supported by research evidence or research data. And then just say, let's test it, right? And then you can just end the discussion of assumptions and opinions by showing your data. Look, I have this. So businesses, companies also need to invest in user experience research, because we know from previous research, user experience research, that offering solutions that people need is the best way to make money. So that's why it's important for companies to invest in user experience research as well. And also, user experience research can save companies time, money, and also their limited resources. So why not, right? So I would like to show you this to give you a general idea of the UX research methods. So there are so many different types of UX research methodologies and methods, and this landscape, as the creator of this from Nielsen Norman Group, Christian Rohrer, one of the important professionals, UX professionals in the field right now, you can see that we have different types of user experience research methods here. And here you see a kind of three-dimensional framework, like we have attitudinal and behavioral axes, and then we have qualitative and then quantitative axes. And then at the bottom of the figure, we have key for context of product use during data collection. You see some, we see green circle representing natural use of product in that type of method. We have red square representing scripted use of the product in that specific study. And then we have blue diamond representing limited use of the product. And then we have yellow triangle representing decontextualized or not using the product during that study. And according to this landscape that you can easily find on Nielsen Norman Group website, you see that there are so many different types of studies, and each of them serves a purpose. They serve a different purpose in terms of the questions they answer and in terms of the purposes they are most suited for. And when you look at the methods in the middle of the quantitative, qualitative axes, you can see that those methods placed in the middle of the quantitative, qualitative axes can be used to gather both qualitative and quantitative data. So, of course, we are not able to, talk about all of these in this webinar, but I will just give you a brief introduction to most of them. Some of them in greater detail, and the rest is like very introductory, brief introductions. So let's start with the first dimension. The first dimension is about attitudinal versus behavioral dimension. So in UX research, we have some attitudinal data resources, and we have certain methods that we use to get attitudinal data. Attitudinal data basically is about what people say they do, okay? So attitudinal research methods basically rely on self-reported data, right? And we use them when we want to understand people's beliefs, their desires, expectations, similar attitudinal tendencies. And these research methods, like interviews, surveys, focus groups, in all of these methods, we as UX researchers ask participants to tell us, right, to report to us what they think, what they feel. And, and we should remember that attitudinal research is always limited by what your participants are aware of, what they are willing to tell you, and how accurately they can remember, okay? On the other hand, we have behavioral dimension. It's about what people actually do. So these methods using behavioral, data collection focus on users' actual behaviors, and they help us uncover and understand what people actually do with the product or service. So when we use behavioral UX research methods, we use direct observation, and we directly observe participant users while they are interacting with the prototype or a wireframe or maybe a finished version of the product. So such behavioral UX research methods as, let's say, eye tracking, A/B tests, click streams, first click tests, or web analytics, these are all, behavioral UX research methods that focus on, actual user interactions with the product or service. So we should remember that best UX research practices, include collecting a variety of, both attitudinal and behavioral data to make sure that we are on right track and we are capturing what we want to capture, basically. Another dimension and distinction is about qualitative versus quantitative dimension. Very similar to academic research. In qualitative UX research, we use research methods to collect data about user behaviors and their also attitudes based on directly observing and hearing a small group of people, and qualitative research, UX research methodology basically answers the questions of why and how, right? And some, common qualitative UX research methods are qualitative usability testing, user interviews, stakeholder interviews, field studies. These are some of the most common qualitative UX research methods that UX researchers use. On the other hand, we have quantitative UX research methods. These methods are basically used to produce numbers, right? Just like in academic research. And these numbers obtained from various UX research metrics, and they are used as UX research data. For example, task time, how much time users spend on a specific time. Task success or completion rate, how many people, what is the proportion of people who successfully completed the tasks, or whether the user has clicked on a certain button on an interface, or whether they gave a certain response to a certain multiple choice question in a kind of summative UX satisfaction survey. So these are all quantitative UX research methods. And basically, UX research specialists use quantitative UX research methods, including data analytics, click streams, to answer such questions as how much, how many, and how often, right? These are the basic questions. So quantitative usability testing or benchmark usability tests, which are used to collect certain metrics and compare different designs to track their progress and performance. Clickstream web analytics like Google Analytics, number of page visits, the conversion rate, how many people visited one certain link, how many of them turned into a kind of purchase or conversion rate, we call them. A/B testing, surveys, these are some of the most common quantitative UX research methods. And basically, while we use qualitative data analysis to analyze the qualitative UX research, such as thematic analysis, creating the themes, and showing the major pain points as issues, and representing them in a kind of affinity map or kind of diagramming and showing them. In the quantitative UX research data analysis, we basically use statistical analysis to show percentages, proportions, and even show some t-tests or similar other tests to show the difference between different versions of a website, for example, as a kind of, trying to find a statistically significant difference between different versions of the website or a product, for example, to see whether they are really different from each other. So we basically use statistical analysis for that. So what about mixing both qualitative and quantitative research methods? We know that we should always remember that what method or methods that you are going to use depends on what UX research goal you want to achieve and what specific questions that you need to answer. So most of the time, mixing different methods of both quantitative and qualitative methodologies, provide a fuller picture of your users. That's why most of the successful studies and most impactful UX research projects benefit from both methodologies. And the last dimension on Rohr's landscape is the context of use dimension. This is about whether and how participants are using the product or service that we are studying. So we have 4 categories. We have natural or near natural use of the product. We have here in this type, the users are actually using the product that you are examining. In the scripted use of product, there's a kind of script that you follow for every participant during the study, and then you give them certain instructions like in the usability test, and then they complete the task according to the script that you are following. Limited use of product, here it's about the participants use only a limited form of the product, and your goal is to get a general understanding of the user experience. For example, you want to see, for example, whether a certain concept would be interesting for users to use, whether they would like it or not. So they will use only a limited use of the product. Maybe a kind of, maybe they will look at the information architecture of your website so that you can understand which one is, making better sense to them. So you focus on a particular aspect, not the entire product. And last category, decontextualized, it means, there is no use of product, right? And your goal is not the test usability, but it's about, a study of maybe a brand perception, or it can be a study of the general aesthetic attributes of a specific design style, right? So interviews, focus groups, surveys, these are some examples of the studies in which the product is not used by the participants actually while doing the study. So another possible categorization is generative UX research versus evaluative UX research. So generative UX research is basically, it's also known as discovery research or exploratory research. We have, direct observation. We do kind of deep inquiry, and we conduct, careful analysis. Because in generative research, we are trying to develop a kind of overall holistic understanding of the users or potential users. And we ask some exploratory questions or discovery questions in generative UX research. For example, who are the users? What do they care about? What motivates their behavior, right? What drives their decisions? So by collecting data, we can generate some ideas, and we can discover new opportunities in generative UX research. On the other hand, evaluative UX research, as the name implies, we are trying to understand if a product, an existing product or an in development product or design is on the right track. We want to know that, okay? And we are asking such evaluative questions like, is the product design meeting the user expectations? Is the product meeting their needs? Is it usable? Is it easy for the users to use? So usability tests, for example, are the most common evaluative UX research methods, and these are, they are very commonly used in the UX research world, and they are basically used to evaluate the usability of a new design or a certain, product. So you can also use, some other, tests like A/B tests showing different versions of a product to evaluate which one is better, or even surveys. You can do that to evaluate the product that you are focusing on. And another possible categorization is about moderated versus unmoderated UX research. So it depends on the role of the researcher. We sometimes, UX researchers are sometimes actively involved as facilitators or moderators in the research session, just like in usability tests, typical traditional qualitative usability tests, or during focus groups, for example, we are moderators. In some others, for example, there is this, unmoderated UX research. In this one, we are not actively involved in the study sessions while participants do something, but some testing tools or testing platforms do the job for us, right? They give service to us, and then we get the information from them, right? So this is called unmoderated UX research. So some popular qualitative UX research methods in the field are qualitative usability testing, maybe the most popular one, user interviews, and also field studies. These are, three, popular qualitative UX research methods. And popular quantitative UX research methods are quantitative usability testing or benchmark studies, which are used to get certain usability metrics like time on task, number of errors, completion rate, and all that stuff. Analytics, web analytics, clickstream analytics, A/B testing, and surveys. These are some of the popular quantitative UX research methods. So let's start with usability testing. As I told you, I'm not going to dive crazy into details, but I would like to, I will try to do, my best to give you as many fundamentals as possible about these popular methods. So usability tests are also known as usability lab studies because they have been traditionally conducted in lab environments. And these are, great opportunities for UX researchers to see how usable a product or service, is. And in a usability study, you can focus on certain specific usages of the product. Okay, and you as the UX researcher are able to determine, right, what are you going to focus on in this usability test. And usability tests are scripted and often lab-based. User product is the thing here. There is a certain kind of moderated script that you follow, and then there are certain tasks that you give to your users. And what is usability? Let me elaborate on this a little bit more. So UX specialists, like Don Norman and Jacob Nielsen, they define, for example, usability with 5 quality indicators. The first one is learnability. So how easy is your product for users to accomplish certain tasks the first time they encounter your design? Second one, efficiency. How quickly can the users perform certain tasks with the product, right, after they have learned the design? And then memorability. How easily can the users remember how to use the product when they come back to the design after some time has passed, right? Number 4, errors. How many errors do the users make while trying to complete the tasks? How serious are these errors? And how easily, can they recover from those errors? And satisfaction. How pleasant or enjoyable, is it for the users to use this product? So these 5 quality indicators, or these 5 things like learnability, memorability, errors, efficiency, and satisfaction. These are 5, quality indicators that define usability. And usability tests are the tests that we use in order to see how, how these 5 quality indicators are present or absent in our design. So, as Jacob Nielsen explains in one of his videos, all design projects, must do user testing because we are not the user, right? We or our team has created that product or design, and we know too much, about the design, so we are biased, right? We are positively biased about our product, so we are not the user, and we have to test it with someone else, with people who are going to use this design. Basically, user testing or usability testing is cheaper, compared to other methods like field studies, for example. Easy to conduct in a few days, and they're also quite convincing. You can just show your stakeholders a video clip showing how users struggle, right, while doing something, and you can say, hey, you see, it's not working. So, it's quite convincing. They can be qualitative, they can be quantitative, or they can be both, right? Both qualitative and quantitative elements can be integrated into a usability test. So qualitative usability studies, generally 5 representative users are considered sufficient for each iteration. For example, you have your design, and then you do this qualitative usability test with a certain script and certain tasks with 5 representative users in your first, iteration, and then you find the issues, you find most of the issues in this first, round of usability tests, and then you make certain fixes, improvements, and then you find another group of 5 representative users, and then you test it again, make your improvements, fixes, and then you want to test it with another group of 5 representative users in the third iteration. And then it goes on like this. As long as you have money and time, UX specialists recommend you to continue like this. So instead of doing one big usability study with 20 participants all at once, and with only one iteration of design or improvements, you need to create 5 different tests with 5 iterations. I'm sorry, 4 different tests with 4 iterations with 5 participants in each usability study. So quantitative usability studies with 20 and even more participants, especially benchmark usability testing, when you gather certain metrics, and when you need some statistical data, right, and find, when you need to find some statistical significant difference or something like that, then you need to, you need a much larger sample size, of course. And usability studies can be moderated either in person in labs or remote in recent years, like in Zoom here, or can be unmoderated by certain remote testing tools. And we give realistic or real world tasks, to representative participants. And these tasks must be real, tasks that people would actually do, on this interface. I'm going to show you an example in a while. And in this usability testing, we also use think aloud method. Okay, it's also commonly used as a qualitative approach, in academic research. In the think aloud method, we ask the participants to think aloud and tell us while they are doing the task. We ask them to think aloud and then tell us what they think, what they feel, what they are doing, why they are doing it that way, okay? Their feelings, their confusion, whatever, okay? We ask them to think aloud, and we basically shut up, okay? And then we just watch, and participants do the talking for us, okay? Because we don't want to prime them, or we don't want to, bias them by talking, or by saying something about the design. And traditionally, usability tests are also, observed by certain observers. These people are actually the members of your team, your design team, and they take notes because the moderator is busy moderating the session, giving the tasks, watching the participant, listening to the participant. So observers generally take the notes, and they can also prepare some follow-up questions to give to the moderator to ask after the usability tasks are finished. And basically, qualitative data that we get from these usability tests, are just analyzed and presented as major themes. And we can create, for example, an affinity map. It's a kind of diagram where you show the categories of issues and some details about the issues. And if you have quantitative data as well, we can also analyze it and, show them as, proportions, percentages, like how many errors on one particular task, how many of the participants completed the task successfully, what is the average time that participants spend on that particular task, and all that statistical information is also possible to include. So here is an example task that you can use in a qualitative usability test. For example, you have your, you have designed your qualitative usability test with a small sample size, like 5 people. And then one of the tasks that you give to these 5 people is this. You are considering getting a new credit card with Chase Bank to use for your travels. Please visit chase.com and decide which credit card you might want to open. And then, the participant just goes to the homepage and then, starts completing this task. Okay. And then you watch, listen, and they're also, thinking aloud, as you know, and you get, you just hear what they think, what they are doing, why they are doing, what they feel, and all that stuff. And your observer is taking detailed notes and maybe some questions. And when at the end of the usability test, after the tasks are finished by the participants, as a kind of follow-up, as a kind of post-session interview, you can also ask some questions about maybe something interesting that you observed. And then you can say, for example, I saw that you clicked on this. Can you tell me more about that? Something like that. And then the participant starts explaining. So this is just an example task for you to give you a general idea of what it looks like. And then we have some other common UX research methods like user interviews, similar to interviews that we have in academic research, but of course we are focusing on user experience here, basically. So it is an example of decontextualized, research method, UX research method, because the participants are not using the product. Fast and easy. You can use interviews when you want to learn about users' perceptions of a design, but of course not about the usability of the design, because they are not using the product at all, right? And we can use interviews to learn some information about the basic characteristics of your users or target users, and then you can create some, UX research deliverables like personas, like kind of character analysis of your user. You can create some journey maps. So these are specific names for UX research deliverables, like reports or article in an academic context. We use personas, journey maps, empathy maps, some other, similar artifacts that we create by using the data. So you can do that by using interview data. But of course, there are always, certain limitations of interviews. And we can say, for example, unlike behavioral, observational data, interview data is self-reported, right? So like any self-reported data, interview data is also not so reliable, because we know that people do not always fully or accurately remember what they actually did. And most of the time, what people say they do is different from what they actually do, right? So we should always use other methods to support our data. Basically about, we need more data about behavioral side. Focus groups, similar to interviews, but this time we have a group of people, again, decontextualized because people are not using the product. And by the way, some UX research professionals hate focus groups, okay? So, and they say you should never use focus groups because it provides nothing for you, but still, it can be a powerful tool. There's a kind of, still a controversy or disagreement about the role of focus groups. But the important point is here, when you want to use a focus group, it works, especially in early stages of product development, when you want to find, some new opportunities or discover some more information about the problem space of the design. When you want to get, different perspectives from different users' backgrounds about your design, you can use that. But you should always be aware of the limitations. Again, you should always conduct, direct observation of users in order to confirm or maybe disconfirm the data that you obtain from focus groups. And you should also remember, for example, there are certain, drawbacks of focus groups, like sometimes, group dynamics may negatively impact certain people, and some people may be more dominant in the group, and then the others may follow his or her ideas, and then, they may get biased. So these are certain, things that you need to think about, you need to keep in mind before you design your focus group. But you should definitely lean more towards, behavioral approaches. Field studies, one of the most favorite, but difficult to conduct and expensive because you go to their field, right? You observe users in their natural environments. So we have the natural use of the product. We are observing the product in the most realistic natural environment, like workplace, like their office, like their homes, maybe, okay, users' homes, home environment. And there are different types of, field studies. There are different examples of field studies. Some are purely observational, like direct observation, limited interaction with the user. Some of them are more interactive, like interviews, in which the questions change as you understand, you ask questions and they answer, like contextual inquiry, for example. Okay, another, one type of field study. And some of them may also involve kind of prototype exploration, where you, again, ask the user to explore the product, and you just try to understand certain pain points. So field studies are very valuable, and you may have some good reasons for you running a field study, although it's expensive, although it's difficult to conduct because of traveling and spending a budget for all that stuff, your time as well. So however, you may have some good reasons for running a field study. For example, if you don't know enough about your actual or prospective users and their needs, if you don't know, how your users normally do their work, on a daily basis, if you want to learn, how they set up their work environment or home environment or whatever that environment in which they use the product is, and when you don't know enough about your users' natural contexts, again, you may have a good reason for running a field study. And obviously, when people can't travel to your location, so if they cannot come to you, you go to them, right? So it's the basic, actually, distinction between other methods and field studies, right? In other methods, they come to us, right? But in these methods, while we are talking about visiting them in their real environments, we go to their environment or original context. So clickstream analytics, another common research method, a quantitative method, of course. We have lots of web metrics like page visits, purchase completions, okay? And analytics is a different expertise, and you need to develop your analytics skills. For example, Google Analytics has different courses that you can follow, and of course there's a kind of learning curve, and learning all the stuff about learning analytics, about the web analytics, I'm sorry, can be very daunting, because there are so many things, so many metrics that you need to follow. So but of course, especially clickstream analytics is one particular type of analytics that are commonly used, which involves basically you analyze the sequence of pages that your users visit as they use a certain site or application or whatever that is. So it's commonly used in user experience research, but of course, that context is missing in clickstream analytics. And also, you have so many metrics about like the number of page visits, the conversion rates, how many people leave the site, but you don't know why, right? That why is missing. So that's why we need, qualitative methods to explain that why. A/B testing is a very popular way of, testing two different designs, maybe more than two, okay? So basically in A/B testing, what we are doing is, for example, when you're doing A/B tests, or we sometimes, we also sometimes call them as single variant test. So basically you are asking, is this, for example, button more effective when it's red or when it's yellow, okay? Or if it's a multivariant test, then it means there are 3 or more versions that you are testing at once. So you are basically asking yourself, is this button more effective when it's green or white or blue or red? Okay, so you are comparing different versions. So one other example could be, for example, using a video of a product instead of an image, for example, and changing the label of the main call to action button from buy now or add to your cart, right? Add to cart. So these are different combinations. So by using these combinations, you can, decide which one works better, right? So for example, this is an example from Nielsen Norman group website about multivariate testing. Here, for example, you see a multivariate test, and we have, 2 or more design elements. We call them variables. We are testing them here. And so each of your variables may have different variants. Okay, this is the terminology. So for example, in this page, the user experience researchers are testing 2 variables, right? We have visual representation for a product. So we have 2 levels, like in academic research, like independent variable, we call them variants in US user experience research. So there is 1 variable visual representation for a product with 2 variants, image or video. And then we have the label for the button, and with 2 variants again, buy now as the text or add to cart as another text. So we have 2 variants. And then, so you are creating here as a kind of, 2 variables. Each variable has 2 variants, and then it leads to 4 different design variations. So we have variable, and then we have 2 variants, and then we have 4 design variations. Okay, these are terminologies that they use in this multivariate testing. And then these are different combinations that they test. And then you do certain statistical analysis to see whether there is a statistically significant difference, between the groups. So some other UX research methods, which are beyond the scope of this introductory presentation, of course. So we have contextual inquiry, participatory design, concept testing, diary studies. So these are all, other UX research methods. For example, contextual inquiry is basically, a method in which UX researcher and the participant collaborate together in the participant's natural context or environment. And then UX researcher always ask questions and then observe and then questions again and then observe again. So they go together. It can be, for example, it can be active inquiry, which means the observer, the UX researcher asks questions during the task, or passive inquiry, you wait until the end of the task and then you have a small discussion. So this is contextual inquiry is a kind of one example of field studies, right? Participatory design, basically about, participants are given certain design elements, and then or they are given certain creative materials, for example, and then you let them construct their ideal experience, in a concrete way that shows you what matters to them most and why. Okay, you see how they design it, and then you try to understand how their thinking works. Concept testing, UX researcher shares, for example, an approximation of a product or service, like a limited use, that captures the key value or key essence of the product to see whether it meets their needs. Okay, you can do it on like one-on-one, or maybe with larger numbers of participants. You can also do it either in person or online to test whether the idea works or not. Diary studies are also quite common, and it's very similar to experience sampling method in academic research. So participants are basically given a kind of mechanism. It can be a diary, it can be a camera, it can be a cell phone, to record and describe aspects of their lives that are relevant to the product or service. And these studies are basically, longitudinal studies, and they are done to, understand how participants interact with the product or service on a daily basis over a week or 2 weeks. It depends on your purpose. Customer feedback, it can be open-ended or closed-ended information, generally provided by a self-selected sample of users, often through a feedback link, button, form, email, and then you ask your customer, how was your satisfaction? Were you happy with your service, and all that stuff. Desirable studies, participants are offered different visual design alternatives, and then they are expected to, associate each alternative with a certain attributes they select from a closed list. They can, for example, select certain adjectives, and then say, whether they like it or they do not like it. So we are basically asking them to, associate each alternative, design with a set of certain attributes that they select from a closed list. Cart sorting, again, very, very actively used. We basically ask, users to organize certain items into groups and assign categories to each group. We do this to understand how users' mental models work, how they categorize things. Okay. Usability benchmarking, again, it's the quantitative version of the usability, which is tightly scripted, and we are using very precise, very predetermined measures or metrics. Remote moderated testing, again, these are the usability studies which we conduct remotely through video conferencing tools like Zoom here. Unmoderated testing, again, these are automated methods that can be done by certain, testing tools that they serve us, by paying them. They can just do the testing for us. Tree testing, again, very similar to cart sorting. We are trying to test the information architecture of our website to see, how easy it is to find items in the hierarchy of the website. Eye tracking is a very high-tech, method in which we have an eye tracking device, and then we are trying to see how users visually interact with the website, applications, or whatever, right? We are trying to understand and measure where participants look as they perform tasks. And surveys and a very common measure of attitudes, through a series of questions, typically, close-ended, but they can also be open-ended. So these are some of the common UX research methods. So these are some of the resources that I have been using for a long time. So I highly recommend you to, explore these resources. Nielsen Norman Group is the number one. User interviews is also full of, resources about user experience research methods and methodologies. They have lots of free stuff that you can download, read, and watch. And UserZoom, again, has lots of free resources about, the fundamentals of UX research. And my favorite book, UX Methods, A Quick Guide to User Experience Research Methods. You can also, consider getting that book and reading it if you are, if you are really interested in learning more about the fundamentals of UX research. So that's the end of the story for the UX research common core principles and common methods. So here at this point, I would like to open a kind of question and answer, an open conversation session. So just, if you have any questions, you can just chime in and we can just discuss together. So thank you for listening.
There's one long in the chat. I think it will be helpful to read if you can. Do you want me to go through that or simplify?
Yeah, you can read the question out loud if you want, Sinem.
Sure, happy to. So it is, all right, there is a note from Emin Erden, and it is about, she noted since March 2021, she started reading and seeing more about the keyword called as family-driven in research articles about early intervention programs, especially for young children with disabilities. And the phrase family-driven, she explains what it is and what it entails. So her question is about, especially, she was wondering, if this research type can be used to evaluate the early intervention program, especially for a group of mothers who had young children with developmental delays or disabilities.
Yeah, definitely. So, of course, the point that we need to understand here, first of all, in academic research, we have different types of research goals and research questions, and we are basically interested in the impact of a certain intervention, for example, in the experimental research or quasi-experimental research, where we are more interested in finding out the impact of our intervention on the outcome variable, right? But if you are talking about a kind of service or product, it can be a kind of app, or it can be something else, like a digital product. And then if you wanna learn whether that product is useful to a certain group of users, they can be parents of children with certain disabilities. You can just, do a kind of usability study. If you have a kind of design, of course, you must have a kind of prototype or wireframe or something like that, or maybe even an idea. You can do a kind of concept testing by talking to parents with, children with disabilities, and or you can do a kind of focus group just to explore what kind of opportunities are possible to see, what kind of service we can offer to these specific group of people. So it's possible, of course, but we need to understand the purpose, the specific things that we want to achieve. But it's a great question. Thank you.
And there's another question about, it's more about the slides actually, whether it will be possible for attendees to receive those slides.
Yeah, I'm happy to share the slides with people. So if you're interested in getting the slides, please shoot us an email. Then our staff, our team will definitely contact you and share the stuff with you.
Yeah. And the other question is about the path of being a UX designer and how anyone can be a UX designer, especially where they should start, whether they should start with taking a course or master's program. What would you say about that as a person who has recently transitioned from academic life to UX world?
Mhm. So, of course, there are people have different stories about that. And I definitely recommend you to join certain UX design communities. For example, Interaction Design Foundation is one big community that you can just join, and you can take courses and get certified, by completing those courses. You can do that. There's also, LinkedIn Learning platform where you can take some similar courses, if you are affiliated with a certain institution, especially. But having first of all, having a degree, having an academic degree is not a requirement to become a UX designer or researcher. All you need is the skills that you need, to do the job, basically. So what they're looking for, both in UX designers and UX researchers, certain skill sets that you need to develop. And the best way, maybe the most practical way to develop those skills is to get those courses and get those certifications and get experience, of course.
So just to wrap up and help people to really understand, there are different menus or platforms that people can join to UX community and interact with others and learn from their experiences, such as LinkedIn and other platforms you've mentioned. And besides that, and especially people are interested in getting the list of names, these communities via email. So that might be something for us to edit below the video on YouTube as soon as we upload this one. And the other thing is, as you were talking about, have anyone who has had some experience in research and have had some exposure to, has had exposure to different types of research designs and methodologies can translate their knowledge into UX world, right?
Definitely. So if you have, for example, if you have a PhD degree in education, psychology, sociology, anthropology, cognitive, science, marketing, masters in MBA, marketing, all those, if you have some, design experience, you can be a graphical designer, you can be an industrial engineer, for example. You may have different skills. As long as they are transferable, then you don't need a kind of academic degree to become a UX designer or a UX researcher. So we have talked to some, professionals from Google, for example, and all they say, as you know, Sinem, all they say is that those skills, those research skills are so transferable. So you don't have to, get another degree to become a UX researcher or designer. So all you need is to transfer those skills. So we can definitely, in our YouTube channel, we can just, share those links and names of those communities, and then people can just use that resource as well. Yeah, our pleasure.
Perfect. And another question, and I know you mentioned one of our mutual colleagues who is actually, who has been working at Google for a long time, and as what she has expressed about who can become a UX researcher and how that can happen. So the question, one of those in the chat, is about whether it's a great start, especially working on Google UX certificate program, if it is a kind of first go-to option, or what would you say about that, especially based on your interaction with colleagues in the UX world? Was it
Google,
kind of like?
Yeah. So Google, UX certificate, definitely good to start with. They offer lots of courses about UX design and UX research, and they are quite, Google certification is quite prestigious. There's no need to say that. And but there are some others as well, especially if you are interested in becoming a UX designer and UX researcher, you should definitely visit Interaction Design Foundation, and also Nielsen Norman Group and NG Group that I shared with you on the slides. We will share the links with you anyway after this. So these organizations lead the entire world of UX research and UX design. So they are like the world leaders right now, especially Don Norman and Jacob Nielsen. These people are like the fathers of user experience, because they started this during the 1990s. So when there was no, even no internet, maybe, so those, there are lots of communities like this. So I will definitely share those links with you guys, and then you can just, check them out for yourselves.
Perfect. I know we've passed our time already, but
Yeah.
I appreciate you all staying a little longer. But finally, I just want to wrap up with one more question, or just to make sure anyone who will also later watch this video will benefit from your experience of talking to UX researchers at big, very known industry agencies or companies. So what would you say about how they started, or what they recommend about for anyone while people are trying to learn about UX research, how they can get in and step in that door and get started, like starting from a kind of small startup programs, or working with them? How should they approach it, is my question, simply just to help those listeners who will be interested in benefiting from your experience of talking to those people.
So I would definitely say just reach out to those people. So I started this journey, for example, by simply reaching out to some UX researchers and designers on LinkedIn. And then I just, invited people to a Zoom meeting, for example, just to talk to them and learn from them. And then I'm still doing that. For example, in 2 days, I think on Monday, for example, I will be talking to a senior UX researcher from Amazon. So I will just, learn from that person, and that's what I'm doing. So also, you should definitely, there are lots of organizations looking for some volunteer UX researchers. These are the best resources. These are the best opportunities for you to get some, some small tasks, and then put them into your portfolio, because all hiring managers and recruiters look for your UX research portfolio. They don't want to see only what you know about UX research, but what you did in terms of the UX research. Like, have you ever used a usability test? Have you ever conducted a kind of user interview? Show me your persona creation, show me your journey maps, and what is the benefit of your research? How did you contribute to the business goals, for example? So there are lots of organizations like that, that with which you can work, and then you can get your work experience. But you must definitely start from somewhere. Don't wait for the things to come to you. Just proactively reach out and say, hey, what can I do? Show me a way. That's what I'm doing.
Thanks so much, Dr. Turk. I think it's super helpful. And what we can do is, as the team of RDAT, what we can do next is probably to create or design another webinar about how to develop a portfolio as a UX researcher, and where to start, what to do next. So you might, if you're interested, of course, no pressure. If you're interested, it might be helpful for those who are interested to see how you crafted your portfolio, where you started with your initial projects of UX research and so on. So thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today.
Thank you.
I know a little bit late for those of you who are on different time zone, but thanks a lot. And please let us know if you have any questions. Feel free to email to our RDAT team, and you can subscribe from our website as well and learn more about RDAT and upcoming webinars and workshops. Thanks so much.
Thank you all.
Have a great
Bye-bye.